Welcome, everybody, to our live stream. I'm so excited about having this conversation. You guys know I love the Barker Adoption Foundation, and we are back together once again to give you some great information with regards to this organization. We're going to talk about navigating the holidays as an adoptive family. I love this conversation. So, back with me again is the Director of Adoption Programs. That's my girl, Sarah McKechnie. How are you?
I am doing well. Thanks so much, Cheryl, and thanks for having us back again.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I was always looking forward to this. And then also with us today is William, and William is William Hill. William is a single adoptive parent and retired from in 2019 after serving 20 years in the U.S. Navy. He adopted his son. He had his adopted son join. Let me pick up his adopted son. Let me pick up. I'm in radio, right? His adoptive son joined William's family shortly after turning 13 since he got married. And he married his high school sweetheart and is preparing to enlist in the U.S. Army. So we are so excited to have with us William Hill as we talk about navigating the holidays as an adoptive family. William, welcome.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
The sun is shining bright and it won't let me be great, but that's fine. We are here. I was reading the bio and I was like, I can't see it because of the shadows, but we are so excited to have you here for this conversation. And thank you all for joining us on Facebook and YouTube or wherever it is you're watching. We really appreciate it. Now, this is an interactive conversation, so if you have any questions, you could place it in the chat. If you have any questions for Sarah, if you have any questions for William, you can put it in the chat and we will address those questions in our conversation today. But we want to jump right in and get to know William just a little more. Share a little about yourself and how you began your adoptive journey.
Well, thank you. So I was married for several years, but we didn't have any children, and my marriage ended in divorce. And I liked kids. I wanted to be a parent, but after I got divorced, I wasn't really looking to get married again, and I thought I was too old to have an infant or a toddler. So I was getting towards the end of my 20-year career in the Navy, and I reached out to a social worker in my local area, and she told me about Barker's older child adoption program. So I contacted Barker for more information. And at first, I was wondering if they would have any issues with me being a single male adoptive parent, but that was no issue at all for them. And I liked the idea of an older child, adopting an older child. And I learned that they had a program specific for older child adoptions. So I got all the information I needed and started going through the process to do all the training and the paperwork.
I love that. And you know what? This is going to answer a lot of people's questions because you talk about being a single guy, single father, right? Talk about adopting an older child. So it's not the norm of, parents getting together. And I know, Sarah, we always talk about those parents that adopt newborn babies or looking for babies, but the older children need to be adopted as well. And how Barker has, the programs to walk people through those kind of programs. So I'm so excited to continue this conversation with William. So why did you choose to adopt an older child? You talked about, it being after divorce and then, latter years, but why was it so important for you to adopt an older child?
For me, a big part of it was I'm older myself. I was in my early 50s.
Gotcha.
And although I really do love babies, and I think I would be fine with a baby, to be in my 50s running after a toddler, or to be a 70-year-old at my child's high school graduation wasn't that appealing to me. So I like the idea of adopting an older child. And Barker was a good fit for that. It was funny when I first started out, I said, my target age range is I don't want to go trick-or-treating and I don't want them driving yet. So that's my range.
Oh, got it. Got it. So, and I understand those that period in somebody's life, and saying at this point, I still want to adopt and be a part of somebody's, be a father. And so, Barker was able to help you with that. Now, what would you say your greatest concerns were in doing this type of adoption? You mentioned, of course, age. You mentioned being single, and just being retired from military. But talk a little bit more about that.
My my family was very supportive for the most part, but I don't really have any family close by in this area.
Mm,
So
gotcha.
I think one of my biggest concerns was just juggling life as a single parent, managing school and sports and activities, and doing managing all that while still working.
Mm,
But one thing that I found reassuring was I just kept reminding myself that there are millions of single parents out there who do this every day and they
mhm,
manage it just fine. So I think the important part is to just make sure that you have a supportive network and that you are willing and able to lean on others whenever you need help. Another thing that I, as a single male, I'm not that great of a cook, and my meals are pretty simple. So I was wondering, about meal planning and what if I get a picky eater, but eventually that didn't turn out to be an issue at all because my son I think he actually likes much of my cooking, and he's not that picky of an eater, so that worked out. But those were some of my initial concerns.
got it. So I know I fudged the bio a little bit, but I really want to talk about your son. You adopted him at 13, and since graduating from high school, his son married his high school sweetheart and is preparing now to enlist in the U.S. Army. So I wanted to make sure that that story was clear. I kind of like couldn't read it because of because of the shadows that was here, but I really wanted to talk about the success of that. And what would you say your greatest concerns were in doing? Well, we talked about the greatest concerns, but what surprised you the most about the journey?
I think what surprised me most was just the time involved in terms of the search. Yeah, I started the process and I said to myself, there are 100,000 kids out there in foster care who are looking for adoptive families, and it shouldn't be that hard to find just one. And I thought it might have been a shorter process, but once you're in the program and in the process, you realize that it's it's there's a lot involved, and it really just takes time.
Mm,
I think it may take a little bit longer for single parents, maybe. And it could have also been in part my criteria because um, Barker's social worker would go over with me what are the things that you can tolerate, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Would you accept a child with this type of history or that? And I was flexible to some extent, but I also knew what I could and what I could not handle, as a
mhm,
parent and as a single parent. But my social worker at Barker was really good about always asking for feedback, because I would get lists of kids. What do you think about this one? What do you think about that one? And I would say, this one I think is definitely a potential. This one, these are my concerns. These are my issues. And so I was maybe a little bit more picky, but I
mhm,
also wanted to make sure that I got a good match in the end.
mhm. And so what the message I hear is, go through the process,
Yeah.
whatever it takes to just be patient and go through the process. So yeah, we're here at the holidays. We're here at Christmas, and I know, Christmas, the first year being a father had to be special. Talk a little bit about that. How did you spend your first Christmas when you had your son?
Our our first Christmas was very unique, primarily because it was in the middle of COVID.
Oh.
And so it was just us, and we couldn't travel. So it was different for him. It was different for me. It
Hmm.
was quiet, just the two of us in the house. I got him a bunch of gifts, and he opened them, and I think he was kind of overwhelmed.
Oh.
And he said that in past Christmases he didn't get anything at all. So he didn't share much. I wondered what he was thinking, if he was thinking about his foster family or his birth family
Mm.
or past Christmases. Um, and he spent most of the day in his room, and I just made sure that I was available for
Oh.
him if he wanted to talk.
Mhm.
But he was probably processing stuff. I was processing my thoughts, and I didn't want to push him, because teenagers talk when they're ready, um, and you can't really push them. But because of COVID, our first Christmas was very isolated, and it was different. It wasn't. I I kind of wanted to go into it with few expectations, but it was quiet.
Wow. Wow, the pandemic really was a crazy time, and for you to get your son during the pandemic, where you guys were forced to be isolated, to
Yeah,
get to know each other, I can imagine some of the struggles of that, some of the feedback, the unique situation that was already unique, right? That now you're a new dad, and he's got a new family, and then having to be isolated during the pandemic. Man, those that we knew well that we were we were locked down with, we had some challenges. So I can imagine that, but you guys endured it, and so
oh
here
yeah.
you are today, right? Here you are today, and that's really great to present as we share this information with our audience. When you're considering adoption, you have all of these challenges. You have all of these things you realistically need to look at. But what I love is the victory behind it. I love the fact that you are a family. Now, have you established any new holiday traditions now? That you guys plan to keep now that you got through that.
um, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but my son would say we're both dudes, and we do things like dudes. But I think our tradition is to go spend time with my family. They welcome him. They, treat him just like any other family member. But I think Christmas can be a bit difficult for him sometimes because it brings back emotions and feelings. Um, and I just make sure that I'm there when he's in the mood to talk. I will sit and listen for hours.
Mhm.
Doesn't happen often, but you just have to wait until he's ready to share. One of the things I try not to do is to give advice about things when he's not asking for advice. I give advice when he asks for advice, and when he doesn't ask for advice, I mostly just listen.
Mhm.
Um, I guess one kind of tradition that we had is it's like a competition with him and the cousins. Uh, where we visit our family, we go for all you can eat sushi, and they try to literally eat all that they
Like,
possibly can. Yeah. And,
that's so
and he looks forward to that. And it's a little embarrassing, and I'm sure he probably doesn't feel so good afterwards, but he literally eats about as much sushi as he could possibly eat.
wow. That's awesome. Do
But
things. Do
but
things.
now he's a married man, and he'll be setting up his own traditions with his wife.
Mhm. That is awesome, and I feel the emotion that you feel, about your son's life before, you became his father. You can only imagine the conditions kids in foster care endure. Some people luck up, right? But and some kids, I can feel the emotion that you feel, life before you adopted him. And so that's beautiful that he found his family. Um, how did you help him navigate the myriad of emotions that come up around the holidays for adopted youth? Now, you talked about how you let him process, right? Like you let him feel what he feels, and when he wants advice, you're there. But the simple fact that I think that now that he found his family, that life, you have to process those things. But how did you help him navigate that? If you can talk a little bit more about that.
So part of my role as an adoptive parent, uh, parenting is hard. And when it comes to adoption, I think one of my big challenges was trying to determine whether a particular behavior or action was related to being adopted or being related to a history of trauma
Mm,
or just being related to a regular developing teenager. And that probably was the hardest part. Um, One thing that was reassuring for me was to talk to other parents of biological children, and they would tell me, yeah, my kid's doing the same thing, drives me crazy. And so for him, like I said earlier, a lot of it was learn when to listen and learn when to talk.
mm,
And it's a lot of listening with some guidance along the way. And for him, he he was very much a tough guy. So what I worked to show him was that what it's like to be vulnerable, and that it's okay to be vulnerable,
mm,
and that vulnerability can actually also be a strength. And so I did see him change somewhat over the years. He's a very, very smart kid, and it's been interesting, even though he's only been with me for just over 5 years. Um, it it's been very interesting to see how much he has grown over that time and how his self-awareness has changed in those years as he developed and went through middle school and high school.
mhm. Got it. And this is a great question for those who might be considering adoption. What support did you find to be the most helpful for yourself as an adoptive father?
For myself, I think other adoptive parents, other adoptive families were a very big part of my support group. And Barker has monthly support groups for different categories of adoptive parents. And I would pretty much try to attend them every single month.
Mhm,
And that's where other adoptive parents share their stories. We talk, we listen, we get ideas.
mhm,
We get information on resources. Uh, we talk a lot about technology because every one of these kids has a phone. Um, so I think interacting with people who are in the same boat was very helpful.
mhm,
Hearing about experiences helps you put things in perspective. And I met other adoptive parents, particularly some single adoptive parents that I've kept in touch with, and we meet and we get together periodically and just have lunch or dinner and we talk or have long phone conversations about what's going on with our kids and our families. And
mhm.
it's reassuring and also a great source of information.
Got it. And you've shared so much already, but specifically, what do you think you could share with families who are considering older child adoption?
for families considering older child adoption, it's a long process. It requires
That's number one, right?
dedication, time. There are some expenses involved. It's important to have your families and your friends who are supporting you through this journey, and for you yourself and other prospective parents, is, all of these processes are there for a reason, to protect the children and to ensure the best possible match. So patience is important. There's going to be a roller coaster of emotions. You're up, you're down, and it can be challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to say no if you don't think a child is a good match. It breaks your heart because you want to adopt, a couple thousand kids. But if you don't think you can handle something, you need to be able to say no.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find that balance between your gut and your heart and your brain, in terms of finding a match that's good for you. You have to be realistic about the process and the time it takes. Lean on others. Barker has put me in touch with other prospective parents, and we've talked a little bit about the process. Hopefully that has helped them to have a better understanding of how the process works and the timeline. And in terms of an older child adoption, I think a lot of people have a preconceived idea that, oh, those older kids, they're all set in their ways. But, I think for older kids, I look at nature versus nurture, and I believe that it's really 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
That, you can nurture all you want, but there is some nature there that is going to, also work on these kids. And there is nature there that you can also nurture them and nudge them in different directions. But parenting is hard any way you look at it, whether you're a biological parent or an adoptive parent. For me, the benefit of an older child adoption was I missed out on sleepless nights and diapers and baby proofing and the terrible twos and potty training. And of course, I said trick-or-treating. And then we just moved right into attitudes and dating and driving.
Yes. That's exactly what happens during that era too. Attitudes, man, attitudes. You jump right in there. And I love this story. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for sharing your life, and and just exposing life after adopting an older child, because there's so many that need to be adopted. Navigating the holidays as an adoptive family is what we're talking about with Barker Adoption Foundation. Sarah McKechnie is here with us, Director of Adoption Programs, and there's so many great programs that Barker have. And today, we're talking about Project Wait No Longer. We're talking about the programs that they have in adopting older children. So, Sarah, share a little about Barker's Project Wait No Longer, the Wait No Longer program.
Sure. I'm more than happy to do that. So Project Wait No Longer is just one of Barker's adoption programs. It's specifically the one that focuses on private adoption from the foster care, from U.S. foster care. And so what that is, it's Barker's social workers partnering with child welfare case managers, adoption recruiters from the different Department of Social Services or child welfare agencies across the United States. And as William mentioned, there's hundreds of thousands of children that are available for adoption. These are children that are legally free. So it means that parental rights have been terminated and they are truly in need of a family. And so Barker has, established this program in 2007, really to be able to address that need, that growing number of children that, are in need of family, parental rights being terminated, and being able to offer that permanency to them. So we do a lot of work to recruit families, such as William, and many others, to be able to provide a home for these youth. And just to provide context on some of what William said, it is a long process in terms of well, I'll say it's not just coming in and picking a child off a tree, right?
Right.
It's way more intentional than that. And for families to be able to adequately assess, what am I best equipped to be able to navigate? How well am I prepared to be able to have this child join my family and provide the things that they need? That really is an ongoing conversation between families and our specialists. And so, if families were to say yes to the first opportunity that becomes available, well then the matching process could be about a week, or 2 weeks. But we want to make sure that we are providing sustainability and families that can be successful. And so certainly a family is able to say yes when they're feeling ready, but it has to really be an honest and transparent and thoughtful yes, because what you say yes to, you're going to be parenting ultimately. And so behind that intentionality, Barker has a very reduced disruption rate as compared to statistics within the broader scope of older child adoption within the US. And so within the foster care system, you may have that disruption rate being about 17 to 25% of adoptions that don't actually move forward to finalizing. But at Barker, taking that intentional approach with our families and really spending time understanding what are you equipped for, it's more like 7 to 9%. And that is because older child adoption is not a walk in the park, right? We're truly passionate about it because we want families that are ready, that are willing, that are committed to doing that hard work. And so, yes, being flexible to the process and being patient with the process, because ultimately we want the child that comes to your home to be able to be your forever family, finalize that adoption, and you be a part of that child's life, forever. So that is the mission of Project Wait No Longer, to create these families for children.
Got it. And it kind of like, I feel safe with the idea that there is a thorough process, right?
Mhm.
Even though the process is long, you feel secure in the fact that you guys are doing your due diligence, that these children are not placed in homes that will be abusive or negative. You got to do the research. Like, why do you want to adopt before you actually give? So I know, William, you understand that going through the process was necessary, right? It's necessary, even though yourself, we know ourselves, that no, we really do want to love this kid. You have to prove that before somebody will allow you to raise a child. So I think, as you said, being patient in the process, and the process works. The process
Mhm.
is on purpose, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. So what type of support is available for families adopting an older child? I know you talked about Project Wait No Longer, the program, and but there is a lot of support. We've had counselors on from the
Mhm.
Barker Adoption Foundation that serves as support. So let's talk a little bit about that, the types of supports that's available for families adopting older children.
Yeah, a lot of the support that Barker provides, it's not just for the adoption process. It begins well before. So for families that are considering adoption, you would have heard William say that he's been connected to families who are still perspective. They're just thinking about adoption, right? We've connected William with some of those families that are wondering, can I do this, right? And so being able to pair families with families that have gone through the process is part of that support that Barker provides. If you want to talk with an adoption professional, we do provide paid and unpaid consultations. So you do have, up to 1 hour talking with our directors or our program staff about the process and any individualized questions that you have. You can also join other prospective families in monthly information meetings. The first of which for 2026 is coming up in January 5th. Here we go on the ticker. So that's our first general information meeting for next year. We also have pre-adoption counseling. So if you wanted to, explore, readiness around, if you're coming to adoption as a part of, infertility, or you are wanting to adopt after having parented a biological child, there are so many layers to that families are wanting to explore and ensure that, am I ready for this? Am I right for this? Is Barker the right agency for me? Is older child adoption the right type of adoption for me? All of those things can be explored and navigated before you even applied. Then once you apply, we do have those we do provide supports during the process. So you can connect with other waiting families. We have those, bi-monthly meetings, with other families who are waiting in the process. And then as William said, after you have, welcomed the child home, you're finalized and you're on your own, we're still there to be a part of your lives through these monthly support groups where you can connect with other families who, you've gone through the wait, you've placed, and now you're in the throes and trenches of parenting, and you still need some of that support. So before, during, after, Barker is there to be able to provide very individualized, tailored, and group support for families that are considering this type of adoption.
Yeah. And, I think the key, Sarah, is get the process started. If you're interested, we're talking about navigating the holidays as an adoptive family. It's the voice of adoption. And if you have questions and you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, wherever it is you're watching, now's the time to ask questions. And we will, you can address them to William, who is an adoptive father. If you want to ask Sarah any questions with regards to Barker, you have the opportunity to do that as well. We've been talking about navigating older child adoption. And William, if you're just tuning in, is a single father, an adoptive parent, and retired in 2019 after serving 20 years in the U.S. Navy. His adoptive son joined William's family shortly after turning 13. And since graduating from high school, his son married his high school sweetheart and is preparing to enlist in the U.S. Army. So William was able to give foundation, and now, he's not just father to his son, but he got a daughter-in-law now, and they've got a family, and the family has been extended. And before long, they're gonna have grandchildren and all of the things. So, and he was able to do that, his adoption process, after 50, right? And so for those who are watching and you're thinking it's too late, but I still love children, I want children like William, get the process started, right? For more information about the project Wait No Longer, we've got the website scrolling at the bottom, barkeradoptionfoundation.org. That's barkeradoptionfoundation.org. 301-664-9664 is the number to call as well. Sarah, what would you say is Barker's greatest need for families at this time?
Yeah, we have a need for all types of families. So, as you see, we have a single father on here, and so most importantly, we don't want anyone to count themselves out of the process, right? There is space and room really for everyone. And so we serve families that are coming as a single, families that are coming as part of a couple, families that are from the LGBTQ community or heterosexual, any race, or religion. There really, really is space for everyone in the process. And what we're looking for mostly with families is, can you be committed? Can you be flexible? Can you be disciplined to learn about the population that you are wanting to adopt from? And so, if you're adopting from foster care, you want to know a little bit about, okay, what does a child from foster care look like? What are some of the things that I can expect and anticipate? Even for infant adoption, you got to be familiar with, what are the considerations of a domestic infant adoption? There are things that you should know. And, we spent some time talking about that on one of the previous shows, Cheryl, where we had our pregnancy counselor on here, our adoption counselor on here, talking about some of those considerations for infant adoption. And then if you wanted to do inter-country adoption, you have to be familiar with, okay, what is involved in that process? What do I need to be open to? What do I need to expect or anticipate? So the type of family that we are looking for, that we're most in need of, are families that can be committed to the process, be flexible, be able to adapt and adjust, because parenting requires all of that, really. So we're just getting you prepared for what parenting looks like, because you're going to need to be flexible and be able to adjust and try new things. And so families that are open to older children, specifically, that is a very vulnerable group. Families that are open to sibling groups, also vulnerable group, because the majority of families often want to start out with a young child, or a baby. You want to be able to be a part of their first words, their walking and talking, all those early milestones. You want to be able to do that. But we also need families for our older babies, and I call them babies because they still need nurturing and love and support and care. And then families that are open to specialized needs, and so that can be medical, that can be emotional or behavioral needs, developmental needs, just being open to the range of those types of specialized needs, whether it's mild or moderate or significant, some that might be impacting their ability to live independently as an adult, or maybe it just includes you having to engage with one or two or three or five different specialists. All of these kids need families, and so we are recruiting and increasing education and awareness around those real needs, so that families who are feeling primed to be able to step forward can do so, and we can support them through that process along that journey.
Mm-hmm. Barker has everything that you need, family, if you are considering adoption. And, when we're talking about navigating the holidays as an adoptive family, I thought about what would it be like if you gave the gift of a child, right? Or at least the process, maybe you're watching and you and your husband are having problems with having children. I've told my testimony because initially I was told I couldn't have children, and I did have bonus kids, but my husband and I considered adoption at one point before God performed a miracle, and then I had a daughter. But adoption was definitely in our in our view if we weren't able to, because there's so many kids that need to be adopted. And I love, William, that you that you were so persistent and you went through the process and just really was determined to be a father, and then finding your son. All right. So Sarah, what is eligible? I mean, who is eligible to adopt through Barker's Project Wait No Longer program? Who's eligible for that?
Yeah, so we sort of touched on it a little bit. So
Yeah.
our Project Wait No Longer is a very broad, open, expansive program in terms of we don't have an age cap, right? And so what that means, much like, William sort of articulated for himself, he felt that he was older. We didn't say he was older. He said he was older.
Yeah.
But he felt inclined to adopt a child who was older as well. And so when we're working with the caseworkers through public child welfare, they are going to be more inclined to to match or pair a teen with a family that is coming over the age of 50. And so being able to self-select in that regard only helps because children are a part of the process as well, and they give voice and choice to to the family that they're open to, and that they're wanting and what they're desiring. And so we are open to same-sex couples. We're open to families. Minimum age 25, so anyone over 25 is able to adopt, or rather 25 and older, I should say, is more accurate. Any race or religion, any either gender. This doesn't matter if you're coming as a single female or a single male. Either one is fine. And so eligibility, we have eligibility criteria listed on our website, but we're open to a wide range of families, because these demographics are represented within the waiting pool of children. So, being able to, have families from the LGBTQ community, we also have waiting children who are in the LGBTQ community, and really do want to be a part of an affirming household. So we're open to all of that.
Got you. So let's talk about the starting process. Let's talk about it now that we've talked about the programs and William's given his story. Where do we get started? And I know you just mentioned workshops and different programs that you have coming up that people can jump right in and get at least get the ball rolling. Let's talk about the beginning stages. Let's talk about the process.
Yeah, so the beginning stages can look different for different families. There are some that have, explored and researched and, prayed and come to a decision already that they want to adopt. And so they can jump right into an application, right? Which can be found on our website. You see it scrolling at the bottom in the ticker. You click there, you go to the Apply Now button, you can start your application today. For families that need a little bit more before they are ready to jump into an application, you can start out by joining us in a general information meeting or a pre-adoption consultation. And you may find that that coming to the information meeting, that we hold on Zoom is sufficient. You're in a group setting, you can get all the information on all the programs, and that works for you. For the family that does need that individual consultation and needs to really get down to the nitty-gritty of it all, explain the nuances or the unique nature of their search or their considerations, they can sign up for a consultation. All of that can be accessed on our website to be able to start the process. We do have our pre-adoption training as well. It's a curriculum that starts on January 10, our next session. We have 6 different available cohorts for that. So there's 6 opportunities throughout the year that families can begin that pre-adoption training. That can be done concurrently with your application. It can also be done simultaneously. So if families wanted to do the training first and see if this feels if adoption feels right for them, then submit an application, they can do that. But it can also be done simultaneously with an application. You don't have to wait to do the training and then apply. So either order that a family wants to do. So multiple places to start. If that just confused anyone, just call on the number on the screen. You can call and talk with any of our staff to figure out how to get started.
And that's what I did. I made a phone call.
Wonderful. I was going to ask you, William, what is something final you'd like to say to those who are watching today? Somebody who might be considering adopting older or just adoption overall. What is it that what message would you like to leave with them today?
It is both very, very rewarding, and it's also very challenging. And as I talked about it, you have to be very patient. My son was visiting this week, and we were talking, and I told him, that when I get old, I need to make sure I have enough saved so I can have, a nurse care for me. And he said, I would care for you. And I said, yeah, but you have your own family and your own life to live. And he said, You did too.
Wow.
William.
Wow.
If you meet his son, he's so unassuming, um, very quiet, he likes to put on this tough guy exterior, but we've seen these just moments in him between the two of you together, William, these very sensitive, tender moments, especially like the one that you just described, where it just showed that you tapped into something special for him. You gave him that gift of family where he has the freedom to be vulnerable, be open, be sensitive, and you gave him something that he never envisioned having. And so now he gets to do that for you. Adoption really is full circle because they get to do that for someone else. So thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's very powerful. It literally is God saying, "See, I got you.
Mhm.
You didn't wait too late, and I got you." And I'm so glad that you guys found each other. So you're right. So sometimes the roles reverse the older we get. So it's always a blessing to know that you have that. So Sarah, same. I don't want to belabor everything, but talk about a final message you'd like to leave with our audience today with regards to adopting and, older children or just adoption overall.
Yeah, having worked in this field, I am able to see what a life-changing experience it is for the child and for the parent. It really, really is an opportunity on both sides. It's the gift of family, and so being able to step forward for a child that needs a family is something that just cannot be understated or cannot be repaid. It's something that we are always willing to support families through. We really do see it as our responsibility as we're recruiting families to be there to support those same families that we've created. And so anyone that is, wondering, should I do this? Is this for me? Yes. Yes, call us and we can talk about the different paths and the avenues to families. All of the programs are not the same. There are unique details about each program where you can see yourself reflected. There might be eligibility criteria that may rule you out of one program, but is totally acceptable in another program. So call and ask. Don't rule yourselves out. Don't count yourselves out. Call and ask, and you may be surprised that we may have a program and a family for you. So we encourage you to do that.
So, as you can see, I love this organization. I love the Barker Adoption Foundation. I was saying to Sarah before we came on, I was looking forward to us sharing this conversation again to our viewers. And so we appreciate you guys. If you have questions, you have a few minutes to get your questions in for Sarah or for William. But we're going to wrap things up. Anything happening, soon? I saw you talking about workshops. I saw you talking about an open house or an information session that's coming up, Sarah, that you want to drive home before we're able to close out?
Yeah, all of our events, and we have it here on the screen, all of our events are available on our website, the first of which is our general information meeting, to kick off the year. It's the first Monday of the new year. And so we want to get all of the families, if this is a part of your New Year's resolution, to get your life together and figure out how you can give the gift of family. Come on and join us in January. And we also have other events and trainings that are always available on our website. So anyone that's trying to figure out, what's going on at Barker, barkeradoptionfoundation.org. If you click on the events tab, you'll be able to see the list of things upcoming. But right here we have flashing the very first thing that we want families to pay attention to, and come on out and see how they can make a difference for a child.
All right, start the process, family. Go to the website, find out more information. Go to barkeradoptionfoundation.org. That's barkeradoptionfoundation.org. I don't want to be redundant, but did we hit everything that you need, Sarah? Share it with those today.
We did. Thank you for
Wonderful.
this space.
You're very welcome. William, it's so great to meet you.
My
Please
pleasure.
hug your son. What is his name?
Ramond.
Please hug Rahman for us, and we are praying for him and his family, his new family. That's your extended family.
Yeah.
Praying for them as he navigates and even, enlist in the army. Praying for his protection and just as your family is expanding. This was such a great meeting, and thank you for sharing and even very intimate and personal times. As an adoptive dad, we appreciate that. And Sarah, thank you so much for sharing all of this information once again. So we're going to close out. Thank you guys for joining us today. Voices of Adoption. We will be back, I'm sure, because I love this message to share with our viewers. And of course, if you have any questions or information, jot down the information that's scrolling at the bottom. But we'll talk to you guys the next time. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, William.
You're welcome.
Thank you.